My share today is playing God, or how I play God, or not playing God. So the idea is that our proclivity is to be independent of God. In the Garden of Eden illustration, the children were there frolicking, owning the land, conquering it, naming animals, walking hand in hand through the brush, not getting a mosquito bite anywhere because they were protected by the love of God, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, shooing away the bugs. Everything was in harmony and in love in the garden. And they were walking hand in hand, buck naked. Beautiful, beautiful um, times. And then the enemy came in, serpent, and caused them to doubt and go into insecurity and self-pity. And they were driven to make a decision that will cause them to be, and us to be, slaves for the rest of our lives. Because the invitation was to play God, to know what God knows, to be like God, to cast judgment, and to see all things and be independent of God. And it was the first conversation about God without God. And so we still have that tendency to play God in our lives. And the definition of God is, the characteristics, or the definition would be God is to be worshiped. God is to, the concept of worship is what I give my heart to, in the hopes of validation and identity. And so if I give my self to, my time, my money, my energy, everything that I have, I'm actually worshiping that thing, whether it's alcohol or drugs or food or pornography or relationships or people. I'm actually giving my heart to them to validate me and to give me my identity. And so in this day and age, I was having this conversation with somebody about how we are all prone more elaborately to have idols in our life, to worship created things. Because 100 years ago, they didn't have the things that we have today, like just this social media and information and pictures and all the things that we have today. Our culture has designed false idols, just like the availability of food. Like, no one has to leave their house to overeat. It'll come right to you. Pornography and sex will come right to your door. You will never have to leave it. Back in my day, there was a thing called dollar bottle, and it was super sketchy. Now you can get alcohol delivered right to your house. They will fight for your doorbell to have marijuana products delivered right to your house. So we have such a heightened ability for these idols to be so present in our lives. So kind of the characteristic of God is what do I worship? What do I give my heart to in return for life and validation and identity? Definition of God is the source of moral authority. So God decides what is okay to do and how to act and what activities are good to be involved in, how we are made and what the parameters of how we are made look like in society. And then God actually has the power over nature and human fortune or misfortune, the power over outcomes. So this is the concept of God. I was introduced to this concept at a very young age and was born into it, adopted into it. I was a missionary kid and a pastor's kid for many years, my whole upbringing. So I was around God, and the idea of God was very distant. Jesus, we had to pray to Jesus to come into our hearts. We had to pray to bless the food every day. Every meal that we ate, there had to be a prayer. We went to Christian club because my mom was a Christian club leader. We engaged in the stories of the Bible through the flannel graph medium. And so I had flannel graph Jesus. And Jesus was in my heart, living in me and transforming me. I had this Jesus in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. I got the love of Jesus down in my heart. But I never felt it. I like there was an exercise that it happened, but there was no experience that it happened, and nothing inside of me changed. I was still the young boy with tons of energy, tons of ideas. I couldn't stop touching things. I was the kid that you do not want to bring into a souvenir shop. So nothing inside of me changed. I felt insecure. I had learning disabilities. I was in special speech classes. Nothing changed inside of me or outside of me for that matter. But what happened was when I hit grade 11, I found my new God. I found the solution to all my problems, and it was in the form of alcohol, and then progressed into drugs and relationships and everything in between. And I had a 15-year experience of worshiping this God that led me to 4 different jail times and losing my license on multiple occasions. And just what it did to me is an endless story of hurt and pain and agony and loss and physical mutations and violence and just horrific like you would see in a war. But I didn't care what it did to me. I cared what it did for me, and it solved my problem inside. And so I got to the end of what this God could do. And I got to the end of being able to worship this God because it stopped giving me what I needed, and the solution ended what it could give me, and it vomited on me. I turned into I became psychosis, and I was trying to get to this point where there was so much pain and hurt. I was trying to take my life, not hurt myself, but just not wake up. And I kept waking up, and I couldn't die, and I can't live, and I'm in this weird purgatory hell, if you will, for about 6, 8, 9 months, and ended up at a homeless shelter. And they had a treatment center in there, and I made my way into the stabilization part where you spend about a month to decide if you're if life is worth living. It's just taking a break on the 4th floor of this homeless shelter. So I'm kind of in the homeless shelter, but on the 4th floor, a little protected. And just I was in psychosis, even sober, paranoid, and hearing voices, and just ending my worship to this God that just stopped giving me the solution that I needed. So one day in class, we had a couple classes in a week. The idea of stabilization is to get your brain stabilized from the drugs and the alcohol, and kind of get some like some life into you so that you can actually do the next part of it. Maybe get your ID back. So I went to Sandy Hill Community Center, got my IDs, and got my health card back, and all this stuff that I had lost that didn't really mean anything because I would give anything to that God to worship. And now I had to do the simple little things to get my life back on track, or just get my name known again, get all the things that I had lost, starting at my identification, which is really I'm just reflecting on how interesting that whole concept is because it took away my identity. It gave me a whole new identity, and I didn't even know myself, and neither would you have recognized me. Just even in my face and my physical appearance, and definitely not in my personality. I had no moral standard at all. and it had just taken everything from me. And here I am at a homeless shelter reclaiming my identification that proved where I lived and what my birth age was, but it wasn't who I was. And for 5 years or 7 years of identity of having that plastic card, my address was actually 35 Waller, which is a homeless shelter. So I lived with that for quite some time until they said I needed a new card, and reapplied, and I have a new address on it now. But I was confronted with this idea that I was playing God at this stabilization time, and they said you're playing God, and these are the masks you wear, and we had to make all these little masks of how we play God with our emotions, and how we present ourselves to the world, because I want you to see something that I'm not, and I'm trying to create something that I think I want to be. And and basically they said you are your higher power, you're the moral standard setter, you're in control of everything and everyone, and your own destiny. And they just pose a question: is it working for you? And I said, come on, man, I'm at a homeless shelter, of course it's not working for me. Like, anybody can answer that question: is it working for me? Dumb question. Yeah, it's not working for me. And they said, if you want to get out of this place, you got to find God, and you got to worship a new God, because you know what worship is to the extreme. And so, can you give your all to this God of creation? Can you give your all to this God of Adam and Eve? And can you give your all to one with all power? In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says there is one God with all power. May you find him now. It's not talking about gods. It's not talking about small g gods. It's talking about the creator of all created things. Can you give your heart and life to him, for him to solve this problem that you seem to have? And you doing it your way, you ended up at a homeless shelter. You've ended up at jail 4 times, and had kids out of wedlock, and rolled how many cars, and written out. You're a train wreck, and you owe $78,000. How are you going to get out of this? Well, I got to worship a different God. I got to stop playing God. So it poses a question: can I ever stop playing God? And and write these questions down, because I don't have the answer. Can I ever stop playing God at all times? And then, and either am I either playing God, or am I not? And is God everything, or he's nothing? Like, that's a principle that I believe that our big book says, on page 55: either God is everything, or he's nothing. Either drugs and alcohol are everything, or they're nothing. And so I gotta pick my everything, and that's what I get to worship. And I didn't even know what I was picking, but it was this God of the universe. It was the God of all things that made the universe. He spoke it into existence. It came out of his mouth. And he made me in his image. The odds of me being born are so next to zero. I would have a better time winning the lottery 500 times over. Every time I played the lottery, I would win it. That odds are better than me even being born. And then I was adopted on top of that at 2 years old. So that's the God that I want to turn my will and I put my belief in. I accept his will over my life. And as I went on this process, I put my belief in Jesus, who is the doorway, the gateway, the good shepherd into the relationship that I have today of the triune God. And I'm made in his image. I'm made with a spirit so that he can connect with me and guide me, just like the spirit of alcohol connected with me and guided me. Now I have this new connection, and went through the process of being able to be connected to him, to this power that took away my mental obsession for drugs and alcohol, that gave me a new moral standard, that actually changed the inside of me, so that I didn't want to do the things that I used to like doing. He actually changed my heart. He didn't tell me what to do. He changed my heart so that what I wanted to do was his will. And then he gave me the power to carry it out. So here's a couple facts on page 25 of the big book. Here's the great fact. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had a deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. And then here's a central fact. So we have a great fact and a central fact of our lives today is absolutely certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts. I have the certainty, the central fact that Jesus has now come into my heart and transformed me on the inside out, that speaks to me, that shows me pictures, that gives me dreams, that connects me to him, and that connection connects me to others. And lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish these things for us, which we could never do by ourselves. And here's another fact on page 24. The fact is that most alcoholics, drug addicts, porn addicts, food addicts, codependents, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice. In our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We're unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first thought, drink, whatever it is that you are experiencing. There's a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. So I believe that I got to that point at the homeless shelter that I was beyond human aid, and that I had been playing God, and that was my problem. And I was going to enter a new relationship with this God that I had known my whole entire life, but this time was going to be a proper relationship, because just the knowledge and understanding of God doesn't give me the proper relationship that I need to solve all of my problems, especially my drink problem. So it says our troubles are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And I am an extreme example of self-will run riot. Usually I don't think so, though. Above everything else, I must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. What selfishness is it saying? It says this is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. That's the selfishness that is going to kill me. It didn't work. Next, I decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be my director, my principal, my father. This concept was the keystone of a new triumphal archway which we passed into freedom. When I sincerely took such a position, so the position that God is my director, father, principal, and now he's my employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. We began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and thereafter, because fear is my enemy. Fear comes into the garden to invoke and ignite the mental obsession that I have to turn to worship other things. And at that, I was reborn. And so, what are the ways that I play God today? What are the ways that the tendencies or the temptations that I have that I play God? Well, here's a few of them, and it comes out of a little pamphlet list, and I kind of related to it. So this is what I wanted to read, and let's adhere to the principle that either God is everything or he's nothing. And so how do I get in God's way? How do I start to sit in the driver's seat or backseat drive? Well, number one, I offer a lot of advice, especially when I'm not asked. So how do I quit playing God? Well, I offer no advice unless I'm asked. And even then, I'm very careful to direct and point people to God. Take this to prayer meditation. Would you take this consideration to God in the morning and let me know what he says to you? the ways that I play God, I don't listen to others' dreams, and I don't help them in the way that they wish to be helped. So one way that I can quit playing God is to actually listen to others' dreams and help them in the same way that they wish to be helped. Help them in the way that they wish to be helped. The way that I can quit playing God is encourage people to find their own strength. Don't look for strength in me and what I have to offer, but actually encourage people to find their own strength in their relationship with God. Here's a great one. To quit playing God is to reserve judgment. My wife uses this all the time, and I never really understood it because I don't play God at any level. I'm perfect in all my ways. Ha! She says that my insides don't match that. She says that she struggled with her insides matching her outsides. And I never really understood this until I understood reserving judgment. This is my emotional nature. So I can quit playing God by actually not judging those, not thinking of a rhetoric in my head of every situation in everybody's life. If they did this, their life would be better. If they would do, like, I'm actually judging. So stop doing that in my head because I'm not going to tell you about it. It's not matching. My insides aren't matching my outside. Admit that I don't know all the answers. Wow. I looked at that one, and I think that I have a tendency to be so quick to know everything, to give you all the answers. I'm Pastor John. Like, pastors know everything. They know the Bible, they know it inside out, they know what's going to happen in the end times and in Revelations and the New Jerusalem and the new, like, man, I just look at this lifetime as like the first 9 months of my life. The first 9 months of all of our lives, we didn't know nothing. Like, we might have known the voice of our mother. Our whole world was encapsulated in like amniotic fluid, and like we were in our mother's womb, and then we're spat out. So like I don't know much more from that, like in the grand realm of knowing things. I just don't know all things. Build confidence in others so that they can have a true relationship with God. So I'm actually building into people's confidence that they are children of God, that they are gifted, that they are special, that they have talents and skills that God wants to help invest and grow within them and for His glory. I have faith in God's word and eternity. Like, not playing God is knowing that there is a plan for me outside of this world. And then dwell on what is right and not what is wrong. So many times we can sit there and just point out everything that is wrong with everything. We were yeah, it's easy to sit in the backyard and talk about how crappy the deck is, and if we did this and that, and the weeds, and all of the things that are wrong with the yard. But what if I'm dwelling on what is right all the time? And then never discount people's good intentions. Never discount. This is one way I stop playing God, is that I just stop discounting another's good intentions. So I believe that I can do that by giving trust to people. They don't have to earn trust. They come in with trust. They come in with a trust account at $100 or at topped up. And it's up to them to discredit themselves. It's up to them to give away their trust. But can I be trusting to people and just believe that everybody has good intentions until they don't? Every area that I have fear, I play God. So that was my little list of how not to play God. And then here's some considerations. Every area that I have fear, I play God. Do I fear alcohol? I have not feared alcohol in 18 years. But where am I fearful in my life is a good sign of where I play God. How about what interrupts me from my decision of not playing God? That's just a question to you. What interrupts me from my decision of not playing God? Will knowledge of all this stuff actually get me to stop playing God? Will knowledge of this actually get me to stop playing God? So in closing, I just want you guys to know that we have this process, and part of this process is inventory. And inventories actually help me discover the obstacles that cause me not to trust and rely on God. So the inventories is going to show me a thing or two. The point of that is to find where it's objectionable and how I play God, and how fear is actually causing me to be driven, covered in delusion, covered in justification and attitudes and thinking, comes out of my actions. And so I actually have to get to the root cause of all this stuff, and just put it on the altar of my heart, and it's up to God to take it away. And so as I give my will and my life to the care of God, a caring, loving God, he is going to transform me from the inside out so that he gets to do his job, and I get to be the child. And I believe that all of our temptation, my temptation, is to step back into that role. And so those are some considerations. Those are some questions that I still haven't figured. I don't even know the answer to them. Do I ever stop playing God? Is that something that I have a tendency to do out of control or out of advice giving or whatever it is? And I just want to leave you with this: either God is everything or he's nothing. And so, would you put yourself into position to give your full heart to the care of God, that you worship him, that as you worship him, as you give your all to him, that he starts to give you your identity and meaning and purpose, and just builds into you for his purposes.